downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast with your host, Andrew T. Evans, with special guest, Chris Stefanick.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. You've gone and done it again. You've downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast with your hosts. I am Andrew T. Evans, and if you haven't gotten a clue by now as to who's joining me, well, you need a friggin' clue, because he is the man, he is the one who's going to break down this big OSU win over the 15th ranked TCU Horned Frogs. And of course, you know who I'm talking about, the man, the myth, and absolutely a legend when it comes to OSU Buckeye football podcasting talk. I'm talking about the man, the Intergalactic Buckeye Fan himself, Mr. Chris Stefanick.
Oh, Andy, it's good.
Woo!
It is good to get on the mics with you after surviving a road victory. I guess you could call that a road victory.
This is a road victory.
Yeah.
This is a road victory.
Over a top 15 team. And by 2 touchdowns. So that anytime you can beat a top 15 team by 2 touchdowns on the road, that's a good win.
Well, let's get technical, Chris. This was not a 2-touchdown win. Our Ohio State Buckeyes did triumph. The 4th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes triumphed over the 15th-ranked Texas Christian Horned Frogs by a final score of 40-28. So that's 12 points, Chris.
Well, so here's the thing. You score a touchdown, you go for 2, you're now at 8. You kick a field goal, you're at 11. Fuck, you're still losing. If it's 2 touchdowns though, you overcome the 12 points. See what I'm saying? It's like it would have taken 2 touchdowns to overcome that. It was a 2-touchdown lead.
Okay, you're right. Even a TCU touchdown, getting a 2-point conversion and moving their way down the field and getting a field goal,
right,
still would not put them in the lead. That put them 1 point away from winning the game. But everybody thinks 2 touchdowns, 14 points. Now,
don't include me with everybody, man.
Hey.
As far as I'm concerned, that's a 2-touchdown win.
You want to know what I'm going to include you on? Here's the deal. You said before last week's game,
all right,
45-35,
okay,
OSU wins the game. Now, 40-28 was the final score. I said 38-21.
Right.
You, sir, were a touchdown too high for TCU. I was a touchdown too low. We met in the middle on that one. They scored 28 points. You said 35. I said 21. So we washed out on that point, right?
Sure.
You said 45 points final score for the Buckeyes, and they scored 40. However, I did say 38. So technically, I was closer in Ohio State's points scored. However, I did say 38-21. OSU would beat the spread, which they've done against Oregon State and Rutgers the past 2 games, and the spread was 13.5 points. I said 38-21, a 17-point win. You said 45-35, a 10-point win. You did not have the Buckeyes beating the spread, and guess what? Going into Saturday night's game, 13.5 points was the spread. They won by 12. So in a way, we both kind of bested each other in certain points, but you were the one who correctly guessed that the Buckeyes would not cover the spread. But still, Chris, a 12-point win in Arlington, which was less than 20 miles away from Fort Worth, which is, of course, TCU's campus, and the Buckeyes come away with a 12-point win. But, Chris, what did you get out of this game? Seriously, dude, what did we learn about Ohio State basically having a road game, a one-off road game with TCU in Jerry World, Arlington? They win 40-28, but, dude, there were some times where I know I was, and I'm sure you were extremely skeptical what's going on with Ohio State. So what did we learn about the Buckeyes this past Saturday night?
Well, I have like pages and pages of notes from this, so
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from them about this one, and there's several different points I could make. So where to start? I would say first of all,
some of the things that stuck out to you. Yeah, first of all, yes.
So to me, it was I thought TCU really came to play. If your recruiting rankings mean anything, there was a big talent gap between the two teams, but frankly, I didn't see a talent gap. They looked just as fast as Ohio State. They looked more or less just as talented. Now, granted, their defensive line was not nearly as talented as our defensive line, because our offensive line did fairly well blocking their defensive line, where our defensive line just like had their way. For the
one sack allowed all game.
Yeah. And, did a good job opening up running lanes and the like as well. Yep. But I mean, in general, I didn't see this huge talent gap, So, and Gary Patterson is he's a top tier coach. We talked about how many times he's beaten, top 15 teams over the last X years and how many upsets he's had. And I think TCU is the winningest program in Texas for like the last, 15, 20 years.
I know. Who would ever say that TCU would be the winningest football program in the last, 15 years or so in the state of Texas? That's crazy.
Yeah. So, they're a talented, fast team. And I think they're going to cause a lot of problems for people, in that Big 12 conference. So there's that. I will say this, though, that through the first half, Ohio State was making all kinds of mistakes. There was, all kinds of drops, 4 by Austin Mack on the game. Now, he didn't have all of those in the first half, but I think he had 3 of them in the first half.
Yeah.
Several penalties, a missed field goal. The tacklers in that back 7, they were making bad angles, and missed tackles, allowing big plays for TCU. And at the end of the half, after just shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again, Ohio State basically played them to a draw. It was 14-13, TCU up 1 point. The yardage, Andy, 289 yards for TCU, 287 for Ohio State. So basically dead even, within 2 yards of each other, and they're making a bunch of mistakes. Second half comes, TCU is the one now making a bunch of mistakes. They had their pick 6 and, other penalties and drops and more turnovers, or the blocked kick. And OSU won the second half 27-14. So they won the second half by 2 touchdowns, or I guess you would say 1 point less than 2 touchdowns. so it was like
2 field goals and a touchdown with an extra point.
Right. So, it was really a tale of 2 halves. They, clearly it looked like, when you look at it that way, Ohio State was the better team. They could have very easily lost if they didn't straighten things out in the second half, stop making mistakes. And if TCU didn't start making mistakes, I don't know that Ohio State wins that game if they don't get basically 3, defensive scores, 2 defensive scores and a special team score. They recover that.
Well, two defensive scores and a blocked punt.
Right. And so that was that, which led 2 plays later, they scored a touchdown. So basically 21 points right there that weren't scored by the offense. They only won by 12. So, you never know what happens if the game plays out. Obviously, Ryan Day is calling different offensive plays if they don't get those 3 scores. But, it's definitely I don't know that they win that game without that, right? So, that was the big thing to me. It was the tale of 2 halves and about the mistakes. But there's a million other storylines that we could go with in this game as well.
Well, how about 20 points in the matter of 4 minutes there in the third quarter? That really was the telling tale. You had Paris Campbell on a pass, a screen pass there in the left flat. He takes it all the way, 61 yards for a touchdown. Then the very next drive, You've got Sean Robinson, a la Stanley Jackson, just kind of throwing the ball forward to somebody, just getting rid of the football, and it magically ends up in a defender's hands. And for those of you who might not know what I'm talking about, the 1997 Michigan game, Stanley Jackson, about to get tackled by a Michigan defender, just kind of throws the ball forward and right into a Michigan defender's hands, which he takes back for a pick six. Draymond Jones did the same thing. All of a sudden, boom, ball ends up in his hands. He's off to the races. He scores a touchdown. Then the very next drive, Ohio State holds TCU to a punt. They block the punt. Sean Wade, our boy from Florida, gets in there, blocks the punt, and then Ohio State 2 plays later gets in the end zone. All of a sudden, it goes from a 21-13 game, Chris, to a 33-21 Ohio State lead in the matter of 4 minutes. That really was, as far as I'm concerned, the tail of the tape.
Yeah. I mean, the football is a game of momentum, and obviously that doesn't get much more momentum than that switch of 20 points in 4 minutes. And give Ohio State credit. They were on the road, their first real test of the season, and they're down 21-13 in the second half, and they didn't give up. They responded. And I like that you mentioned the Draymond Jones pick, because I think that leads us into another really big storyline of the game, which was how the defensive line responded when Joey Bosa went down.
Oh, yeah.
The best player on the team, maybe the best player in all of college football. I mean, they're saying he could go number 1 next year, so that might not be. They're saying like he had a shot to be the first full-time defensive player to win the Heisman, is what they were saying after the first couple weeks, because he's just been that dominating that, I don't know that he would actually win it, But I mean, just that they're having that conversation tells you what kind of season Nick Bosa was having, right? I mean, truly unblockable. That term gets tossed around a lot, but he really has been unblockable this year. And, he goes down, and we can talk more about that in a minute. But the defensive line, I mean, they didn't miss a beat. I mean, they still had with Draymond Jones, BB Landers, Cooper, Young. I mean, that's basically like 4 guys that are going to play on Sundays, right? And Draymond Jones and Young are probably, first-round draft picks. And, I mean, Draymond was just incredible. That was probably the best game of his OSU career. 6 tackles.
Defensive player of the week in the Big Ten.
Yeah, pick 6. He had a sack. He had 2 tackles for loss. I think he had something like 4 or 5 QB knockdowns or something like that. There was some. It's not in the box score. It's not showing it, but that's what like Urban, when he was announcing him as like player of the game, or defensive player of the game in the presser this morning, mentioned something. I forget what it was exactly, but it was some ridiculous number of knockdowns. I mean, he just was unreal.
Well, this is what's funny is that I am looking up on the Stats Broadcast website used by Ohio State and a number of other universities out there. Here are the official stats that they have Draymond Jones listed at: 6 tackles, 4 solo, 1 sack, 2 for loss, interception, pass breakup, no QB hits.
Huh.
And they have QB hits listed as a category, and the only QB hits that they have listed as are Malik Harrison and Jonathan Cooper. 2 QB hits by Ohio State. But I'm with you. Draymond Jones was in the backfield virtually all night long.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, give credit to them for stepping up, and how many defensive lines can lose their best player and seemingly not miss a beat. I mean, obviously they're not going to be as good without Nick Bosa in there, but I mean, they were hugely disruptive and a big part of why Ohio State won that game, because another storyline, the back 7 is not good. And without the defensive line doing what they did, this would have been a total track meet, and almost was as anyways. So,
well, and just to parlay off of that comment, here's what the Stats Broadcast listed at. Jordan Fuller, 8 tackles, led the team, 4 solo, half tackle for loss, 1 pass breakup. Damon Arnett tied Malik Harrison, linebacker Malik Harrison, and Draymond with 6 tackles for the game. Damon Arnett, 5 solo, 2 pass breakups, and Malik Harrison, 5 solo tackles out of those total 6, half of a loss, and pretty much a game-clinching interception there late in the game, and he had one of the 2 quarterback hits. So you look at the stats and you're like what you're saying, the back seven's not that great. Well, you had 2 defensive backs and a linebacker finished the top 3 on the team as far as tackles and all the other stats go. Kendall Sheffield had 5 tackles, 1 for loss. Sean Wade, 5 tackles, a pass breakup. Tough Borland, he started over Barron. Did you see that? Did you
I did
notice
see that?
that?
Yep.
Yeah.
First start of the season.
So,
thank goodness, because Barron is not good. At least not at this point in his career. He's young, but he's not good at this point in his career.
Could we not get into a debate about, kids' rankings coming in to, and that could be debated for years. But, here's another perfect example of Tough Borland. Okay, 3-star kid from Illinois. Baron Browning, top-rated outside linebacker in the country out of the state of Texas. And here's Tough Borland, starting over him after trying to heal up from an Achilles injury. So, we could get into a debate about this, not even a debate, but a discussion about player rankings at some other point. But nonetheless, this TCU game, did it show you, Chris, that Ohio State is that good? Or, let's even getting into a Big Ten comparison. Oh, my God, the Big Ten was so terrible this weekend. Here's OSU at least winning by 12 points and making a show of it. Really coming back when the cards are on the table, the chips are down. Here are the Buckeyes. They're losing 21-13, and they score 20 points in 4 minutes and really separate themselves. But when we look at the whole landscape of college football, did Ohio State really do anything? This was the game, I think, that Ohio State had to prove that they were head and shoulders above everybody else and in contention with Alabama. And after the game, I'm talking with a couple of buddies that I was watching the game with, and we were discussing this. And that was one of the things that came up was if Alabama played TCU tonight, would they have only won this game by 12 points, or would they have completely smashed TCU? And at this point, is it just basically Alabama and everybody else, and Ohio State is just as good as Georgia or Clemson? That may come within a touchdown or 2 of Alabama if the 2 teams took on each other head-to-head.
So there's about a million things I could pick apart with what you just said. Let me just
pick them apart, bro. Pick them apart.
Let me just start by the one that's the most obviously I disagree with, and that's like you said that this is the game Ohio State had to prove that they were head and shoulders above Alabama. Why? I don't see why they'd have to do that. They just have to make the top 4, and if they win out, and frankly, if they lose one and not by getting smoked by Iowa by like an embarrassing number of touchdowns, if they lose a close game somewhere along the way but still win the Big Ten, they're still probably in the top 4. That's all they need to do at this point. So I look back to 2014 and how good did they look versus Virginia Tech week 2 of the season? I think for week 3 of the season they're looking way ahead of that 2014 team. So I don't see why they have to be. This has to be a game where they showed they were head and shoulders above everybody else. And I will say, when it comes time for the playoffs and you're looking at the resume of the teams that are out there, this game is going to be a feather in Ohio State's cap. People aren't going to look back and be like, well, they only beat TCU by 12 in Texas. No, they're going to be like, man, Ohio State went to Texas and beat a TCU team, took care of business, in a fine fashion. So this was a good win. I mean, I know it's easy to sit here after the game and look at some of the things that, where there were areas for improvement, which there certainly were several, but this was definitely a good win. And like I said, if this team is on a trajectory even remotely close to what the 2014 team was as far as improvement as the season goes on, two young teams, this team's very young, the 2014 team was very young, then, we're in smooth sailing from here. I mean, basically they just need to get past Penn State. Cause like you said, the Big Ten's not really that good. I mean, it's like that's kind of the playoff. I mean, obviously you could always lose a game to Michigan State. You could always lose a game to Michigan. You could lose a game to Wisconsin, the title game. But in general, the only team that's a real threat to Ohio State, without like them coming out and laying an egg or having an off week like they did versus Iowa last year, the only team that's a threat if they bring their A game is Penn State. I think that's the only team that can beat them head up if they bring their A game.
I mean, the Big Ten right now, oh my God. Dude, the Big Ten had 5 teams ranked in the top 15 to start this season. And, I mean, you've got Nebraska, who has yet to win a game, who gets beat by Troy at home. And you know what? Akron just beat Northwestern this weekend. And that's who Nebraska was supposed to play to start the season. Akron could be one of the best goddamn teams in the country right now, beating both Nebraska and Northwestern. I mean, the Big Ten just sucks sweaty nut sacks right now. And it is amazing that Ohio State, in beating TCU, 15th ranked TCU by 12 points, could be the best team in the Big Ten. And does this not separate them from Alabama? That's my question. Does Alabama have troubles with 15th ranked TCU like this, or did they come out and smash them? Now, I know that's conjecture. You can't sit here and say, oh, no, they would or they wouldn't. But, I mean, seriously, it just looking at the first 3 weeks of college football, don't you just get a sense that Alabama would have crushed TCU? And okay, Ohio State wins by 12. Not bad. But if not for two defensive touchdowns, Ohio State, I mean, you take those points away, technically, they lose the game.
So here's my counter argument to that. The first half, They played them dead even, and they were shooting themselves in the foot left and right. That first half could have easily been Ohio State 21-3. Had they caught a couple balls that were hitting receivers in the hands wide open. Had they not committed penalties, had they not missed chip shot field goals. I mean, it was just like one mistake after another. It wasn't like TCU necessarily forcing them to make mistakes. They just missed them. And it's not like every year Alabama has a game has at least one game that's a close call, if not a loss. And, it's often like, I know they just, shellacked Ole Miss, but think how many times in the past Ole Miss has beat them or kept it close when they were like a number 15 team in the country or not even that. Could Alabama go in and whack TCU? Sure. So could Ohio State if they came in and just I think if Ohio State plays TCU 10 times, there's a good chance that 7 or 8 of the times they completely whack them. Just like if Alabama plays TCU 10 times, I think they completely whack them 7 or 8 of the times. But at the same time, out of that 10, they're not going to, a few of them are going to be closer where they only win by 12 points. If you hit just like every year, Alabama has a game where it's close. So, and in fact, they usually, and generally they lose a game somewhere along the way, right? So, yeah, you're right. Most of the time when Alabama plays a TCU, they're going to smoke them. I think most of the time if Ohio State played a TCU, they're going to smoke them. It's just this was one of those games where they came out and made a bunch of mistakes. So, I think there's a lot of problems with what you're saying right now. And the other thing is who cares? Why, what does that even matter right now? It's just like I said, we were like ready to jump off a building when Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech, and that was like one of the best Ohio State teams you're ever going to see, won the national title. I mean, it's week 3 and honestly, this was a good win. So what if there's another team out there that is looking better playing, teams that probably aren't as good as TCU to this point?
All I'm saying is that, the national rhetoric is that if there's one team out there right now that can contend with Alabama as far as speed, strength, depth, this, that, and the third, it's Ohio State. Like, that's the one.
That's the rhetoric? I mean, then why are they 4? To me, it seems like
I agree.
The media sure seems to like Georgia and Clemson a whole lot.
You're the Intergalactic Buckeye fan.
Dude, I don't agree. I don't think that's the reception. I think right now people have Clemson ahead of Ohio State, not just Alabama. I think they have Clemson. And some people, obviously a number of people have Georgia ahead of Ohio State too.
I've heard. I mean, I'm just telling you. I listen to, I listen to the radio when I'm in my car, when I'm driving. Is it nighttime? Is it, drive time? Is it morning? Is it this and that? I try and listen to the local guys, the national guys, and I've heard several different people, both local and national, saying that if there's one team to truly contend with Alabama this year because of recruiting classes, depth, talent,
head coach,
this, that, and the third, and their head coach, who they, of course, are getting back full-time this week, which we will be talking about here in a minute or two. But until then, it's Ohio State. It's Ohio State. And I'm just saying, and asking you, and you've already put it out there, and you've given your synopsis, and you're saying, no, that's ridiculous. Ohio State beat TCU, 15th ranked TCU, 20 miles from their very own campus by 12 points. And yes, the first half was dicey. They trailed 14-13. Then TCU came out early in the third quarter, scored again to make it 21-13. But after that, Ohio State buckled down, put 20 straight points on the board to take a 33-21 lead within 4 minutes. And both teams scored touchdowns after that. It was 33-28 going into the fourth quarter. Ohio State closed it out, scored another touchdown there on a Dwayne Haskins read option keeper. Were you surprised at that? I was a little shocked. I'm like, holy crap. Dwayne Haskins kept it and ran to the end zone.
I will never be surprised by a QB running the ball in Urban Meyer's offense.
Yeah, you can't be surprised, but nonetheless, here's the thing though, Chris. If people out there are doubting Ohio State's offense, which I'm not, but this was definitely up to this point the toughest defense that they had played, so I understand where Ohio State may have had their issues with. But ultimately, at the end of the game, dude, Dwayne Haskins, 24 of 38, certainly didn't have his almost 80% completion percentage for the game like he had coming in after the first 2 games, but 24 of 38, 344 yards, 2 touchdowns, Chris, no interceptions. In fact, the offense did not turn the ball over at all. J.K., 18 carries, 121 yards. Mike Weber, 18 carries, 64 yards, but 4 catches for 28 yards. And at times when Dwayne needed to put the ball where he needed to put the ball, he put the ball right where he needed it TCU. And unfortunately, Austin Mack, 4 catches in the game. Do you understand, Chris, that he actually had the most targets out of any Ohio State receiver in this football game against TCU? 4 drops in the game. And I know we just touched on it a minute or two ago, but still though, those stats, dude, Chris, the Ohio State offensive line gave up 1 sack for 1 yard the entire game, and Dwayne and the rest of the team did not turn the ball over.
Right.
These are things to look positively on. Am I not correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, you gave tremendous stats for him. And he still, it wasn't 80%, but it was like 60-something, 24 of 38 and 344 yards. And that was with 4 drops, and that was just Austin Mack, just 4 from Austin Mack.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was other receivers that had drops too, like Terry McLaurin dropped 1. There were some others that were very catchable. And I tell you what, the TCU's defense was pretty good. They only had 1 sack, but that was definitely the most pressure Haskins has faced.
7 tackles for loss. 7 tackles for loss by this TCU defense.
Yeah, I mean, they were bringing a lot of pressure. And Dwayne Haskins was just really good at quickly reading the defense and quickly getting rid of it. And I tell you what makes that also that statistics, his completion percentage even more impressive was their pass coverage really impressed me. I mean, for most of the game, I mean, their defenders were all over the guys. Even the ones, a lot of the completions, Haskins was throwing it to a guy who was covered.
Yeah. So,
I mean, they did a really good job. And Gary Patterson is known for being like a defensive mastermind. And it didn't matter. I mean, Haskins still put up those kind of numbers. So, I mean, he's really good. He's really special. And
1 interception through 3 games, dude.
Right.
1 interception.
Yeah, and I really thought that would be the one area where we would see JT look statistically better than Dwayne Haskins would be. I'm like, well, JT was super careful with the ball where Haskins isn't afraid to throw it to a guy who's covered.
He's a renegade.
I'm like, well, surely JT will have a better touchdown to interception ratio than Haskins. But now I'm not so sure about that. I mean, at least through 3 games, it's not looking like that's going to be the case. I mean, he's just he's a special talent, and it's a good. This offense is really fun to watch. Listening to the presser this morning, they asked Meyer, how much are you going to take over the offense now that you're back? And he said, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave it in Ryan Day's hands. He's doing a great job. I'm just going to concentrate on special teams. And, because that's been our complaint in the past is Urban, he has that old security blanket of running the quarterback to a fault, and it gets predictable. And I was afraid when Urban would come back, we'd see this offense revert to what it's been the last few years, which was, not that great. I mean, it was kind of like, he's got a Cadillac, or maybe Cadillac's not the right term. He's got a Ferrari, and he's not getting it out of second gear, right? Because the way the talent he's got available to them, but the play calls that were being made. So if you remember that 2015 team, I was like, gee, criminy, are you kidding me? But
there's absolutely no reason that 2015 team shouldn't have repeated as national champs. I mean, they were just sick with it. I mean, they lost by Michigan by 1 field goal last second, Michigan State. Anyways, yeah. But please proceed.
So, but he's saying, we'll see if all of a sudden, we go from Dwayne Haskins having 1 read option carry through for 3 starts to he's got 12 carries on the game, then at that point we'll know what's up. But so yeah, I mean it's the offense is fun, and the running backs, like you said, look great. I was just sitting there, I'm like, man, feed Dobbins. When there was times when Max
and Weber, both of them.
Yeah. I mean, I was just like, hey, if they're covering that good, if Mac's going to drop the ball, just feed the running backs, because it seemed like it was there. So
they were running the ball with abandon.
Yeah.
And I kept telling the guys I was sitting around watching the game with that night, I'm like, keep running the football. If you've got to interchange Dobbins and Weber throughout the game, keep giving them the football. Let them run the ball because they were running the ball great. But it seemed like that Day and Wilson kind of wanted to get Dwayne's stats up there. I don't know. I wasn't there for the post-game press or anything like that, so I don't know what they were thinking. But suffice it to say, still Dwayne's stats, completion percentage, not as good as the first two games. Still, though, 344 yards and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions. That's saying something, Chris.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they look good. And, they've got so many weapons available to them. I mean, Paris Campbell, that guy has such amazing speed that, that TD he had that, it's just, he got some good blocking to spring him. I mean, Barry had a nice block.
Yep.
Pridgeon had a nice block to make that big hole there.
Yep.
But, I mean, he was off to the races. Just like when he gets out in the open, nobody's catching that guy. So it's like good things happen when Paris gets the ball in his hands.
That's how fast he is. I mean, nobody from Alabama is going to catch him. And that's where the speed and the talent that Urban has recruited the last few years. I mean, here's a kid, from Akron, but he's fast as lightning. Terry McLaurin right over in Indianapolis, fast as lightning. Johnny Dixon finally overcoming all of his injury issues, fast as lightning. These are guys that are going to you can spread the ball around, and Dwayne's going to spread the ball around. And even though Paris, 2 catches for 66 yards, one of them a 63-yarder for one of 2 Dwayne's touchdown passes. And, you're right. Let's not look too much into this game and see where this team is at compared to Alabama, of all teams. But I was just curious because it kind of feels like early season, I guess it is what it is.
Enjoy the team, man. Enjoy the team.
Enjoy the team. Absolutely. But you mentioned Urban's press conference earlier, some of the things he had to say. Today, on Monday, 11:45 a.m., he comes out, he talks to the media, more specifically some of the national media, more of the local media, about what he's been doing, since his suspension. I mean, he has not talked to the media in like a month and a half, finally came out today and did it. And you and I, we watched this press conference. What was the feel? What was the sense that you got out of Urban? And are you believing what he had to say about, everything that's gone on? Because Urban has been under fire from national media, especially, even some local media, that he's not being truthful, that this and that and blah, 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 blah. What was your sense out of today's press conference from Urban? What was the feel that you got, dude?
Well, I need to start it off by saying that I also watched his interview on ESPN, which was honestly, from like a public relations standpoint, I mean, that was awful for Urban. He did not look good. Did you see it?
I know, and they're picking him apart for that too.
So
is this fair?
He got crushed in that interview, and I don't know how much of it was ESPN editing it. It looked really edited. It's hard to tell because you're switching from one camera to the next. You don't know. Was there like no time in between that switch from one camera to the next, or did they just cut out 20 seconds? Did they just cut out 2 minutes? You have no idea when they do it like that. When you're watching his press conference this morning, it's a continuous feed. It's unedited, so you know what all the context was that was put in and all of that. So I would not be surprised if they did a hatchet job on editing it to make him intentionally look bad. And he looked really bad. I watched that interview and I'm like, why did you even agree to go on ESPN? I know you said you agreed to do it to try to like set the record straight. And it did. I'm one of your biggest supporters, and I thought you looked terrible. So, I'm like, you certainly didn't win over anybody who was questioning you. If your biggest supporters are even looking at that interview being like, what? But with that in mind, with that as my backdrop going into the presser this morning, I was like, now here is what you should have done. You should just said, screw ESPN and come out here. I liked his opening statement. I liked the way he handled the questions. And it's not like the local reporters at his presser this morning weren't asking hard-hitting questions. They were. He just answered them much better. And it makes me wonder, like I said, if they just weren't, ESPN didn't edit the hell out of that interview to make him intentionally look bad. 'Cause you very easily can make someone look bad. I mean, even some of the exact same questions that ESPN asked him were asked at to this morning, and I thought he just handled them much better. So, this morning I felt a lot better after his presser this morning because it got rid of the ESPN video interview. I was like, okay, this just brought everything all back up again and then some. We were finally, wasn't really a story anymore. We were just talking football. Then you have this interview and you look awful. But then this morning, I'm like, okay, that washed that bad taste out of my mouth. And even he addressed issues that were questions. Like, I know when we did our show about this previously, you were like, dude, maybe, and I don't know, maybe you didn't say this on the air, but you at least said it off the air. I think you did say it on the air. You're like, man,
either or, say it. Yeah.
Yeah. You were like, he erased the text messages on his phone. That's shady, And he talked about this morning. He's like, I didn't erase a single text message on my phone. My phone ran out of space. I called the IT guy. The IT guys took my phone, fixed the problem, and came back. I had space on my phone. I had no idea what they did. I now found out that one of the things they did was set my text messages to only keep text messages for the last year, and so all the old ones were deleted. He's like, I had no idea.
Space on the school server, and right.
Yeah, I mean it's completely legit.
Do you believe that though? Seriously,
why would I not believe it? What reason do I have to not believe him?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, this is what he's saying. This is what, the school did, so on and so forth. Okay, we have to believe it, but do we have to believe it?
So I got to believe Urban is a smart man. You don't get to where he's at in his life without being smart.
Psychology degree from Cincinnati. Remember that.
Right. And he, you don't get to this point of being like the top or one of the top college football coaches, in the world by being an idiot. Right. So he's got to know that if he gets caught in another lie, every time he gets caught in a lie, it's going to look terrible. And he really needs to be truthful, especially as he's sitting here saying that one of his core values is telling the truth and saying, I don't lie. And if he sits here and says, and he's saying the IT guy set this on my phone, and then an IT guy comes out and says, we never did that, he's going to look terrible. So I just don't see him doing that. I don't see him lying about that. So, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. We don't know, but it's very legitimate. The reasoning he gave was extremely legitimate in my mind.
This is one of the questions asked to him about this very subject. How do you explain the discussions regarding the text messages and the potential of deleting text messages? His answer: with all due respect to that report, once again, a very transparent, very open report. I don't recall exactly any conversations about that. The article came out, and once again, during the investigation, they asked me about that. They found my settings to be on 1 year, which I wasn't quite sure what that meant. And I found out later, after I went back to work, that the IT people changed my phone settings to 1 year months earlier than that. There was never a deleted message, and I think the report even said that. I can't recall exactly what it said, but I did not delete text messages. I never changed a setting in my phone. So this is what we believe, right? That's it. I mean, that's it, right? No, I'm just saying. Is this what we believe, Chris? He says it. We believe it. Do we believe that is indeed the truth? Do we really believe that?
I choose to believe it. It could be false, but I mean, why would I? Okay, here's a better question.
All right.
What purpose would it possibly serve me to believe he's lying?
Well, because he keeps his job and it keeps Ohio State football running.
No, that's to believe he's telling the truth. But why would I believe? Why would I if I have the choice? Because we don't know. We don't know, and we'll probably never know. So we can choose to either believe him, to not believe him, or to say, you know what, I just don't know. And he could be telling the truth. He could be telling a lie. So, I mean, you can pick whichever one of those three you want to tell yourself, that either you just don't know, or you do know and he's lying, or you do know and he's telling the truth. I just don't, out of those three options, why would I pick the option that says, I know for sure what's going on here, and it's that dirty Urban Meyer is a liar? Why would I pick that? I mean, there's no reason for me to do that.
Of course, because we want to continue having a winning football team. That's why. But
there's also no other evidence to support it as well. So it's like, why, okay, there's no evidence, and this doesn't serve me in any possible way to believe this, so why would I believe it?
And that's it too. I mean, we had two.
So let's put it this way. You've got. Are you married yet, or are you still just engaged at this point?
Does it matter?
Well, okay. So you have a significant other.
Her and I, we are engaged. We are not married. However, we have been together for almost 6 years and living together now for coming up on 5 years. So we're not married officially, but you want to know what? We're both old enough. I'm old as dirt. She's as old as I am. Trust me, we may as well have been married for the last 5 years.
So, all right. So this is completely hypothetical. This is just like a thought experiment, right? But let's say your significant other, you have absolutely no reason to believe she's cheating on you. There's no evidence. Zero, zilch, nada. You have the choice to believe, I know, even though there's no evidence, I know she's cheating on me. I know she's not cheating on me, or you know what? I just don't know one way or the other. With no evidence, why would you choose to believe, you know what? I'm just going to choose to believe she's cheating on me. Why would you do that to yourself when you have no evidence for it? Why would you do that? That's kind of what this is like. It's like, well, why would I do this? Why would I believe Urban's lying when I have no reason to believe he's lying? I have no, or at least no evidence for it. And you could say, well, it's self-serving. Well, yeah, it's self-serving to believe your significant other isn't cheating on you, because it kind of sucks if she is, Well,
that's human instinct. Of course, we're all going to believe what we want to believe based on how that person reacts to certain things. And in an instance like that, my significant other, my fiance, I don't believe she's cheating on me. Never would I ever believe that. But if for some reason I'm like, there's something weird going on here. Like
if you have evidence. If you have evidence.
Human intuition, your brain kicks in. Your human intuition, your brain kicks in, your human evidence kicks in, and you're like, okay, this is not normal from what I'm used to seeing or hearing this person talk about or react to or whatever. I'm with you on that. And this is your synopsis of hearing primarily the press conference that Urban Meyer came out and talked about today. And I think personally, Chris, that in watching a majority of that press conference today and watching Urban answer questions and just his demeanor and everything about it. I'm believing what he says. Now, maybe it's because I got the scarlet and gray glasses on, but I don't think it is because, no offense, Chris, as you well know, I'm a reporter. You and I we're leaf casters. I mean, we're gonna break things down. You and I, we're gonna look into things more than the average fan. I'm sorry, but me, just watching and listening and hearing, his whole press conference today, I'll be honest with you. I'm siding with you. I think he was honest. I think that he really was out to just say, look, this is fucked up. This is fucked up. But this is my stance. I really do believe him and what he had to say in this presser today.
Yeah, I thought it was genuine. So I felt like it went well, and I'm hoping that at this point, going forward, because he's going to keep getting these questions, right? They're going to become less. They're going to be a lot more football questions. No,
I hope not. But I hope not. It should be dead.
Right, but I would like to see
dead after this, Chris. It should be dead.
Yeah, I hope that he's just like, you know what? I had a press conference about this. I answered these questions. I'm just going to take football questions today. I really would like to see him respond that way going forward, because it's enough already. This was it. What else more do you need to know? You're either going to believe him or you're not going to believe him. And at this point, I don't know that anything, if you feel one way or you feel another, I don't think anything more is going to sway you unless some new evidence comes out, right? So let's stop talking about it, and let's talk football. And so I'm really hoping that this press conference today put it to bed, because there still needed to be something needed to be said before today. But now I feel like we can close the book on it.
This was the culmination, because this was Urban's first real presser out in front of the media since his suspension. This was it. This was it. And so some of the national guys were there. A lot of pretty much all, except for myself, local media guys were there. And this was the press conference to kind of put everything to bed. Everything to bed, Chris. And after this, if there are still stories trying to be drug up, at that point, you know what? Just go home. Go home. We're tired of this crap. But did I tell you? Actually, I don't think I did. Personal story here for the Buckeye Leaf Cast. I myself had a pretty cool 10 to 15 minute talk with Dan Murphy's ESPN.
Oh, cool.
It was kind of funny. So we're both leaving the OSU press box at the same time, and he's standing there waiting for the elevator. And, I kind of walk around the corner. Hey, what's up? We both get on the elevator at the same time. Ended up talking for like 10 or 15 minutes, dude. It was actually kind of cool.
Nice.
Other than that, I don't have anything newsworthy or groundbreaking to report. I just kind of talked with Dan Murphy's ESPN for a few minutes. So, hey, before we jump off the microphones, dude, Buckeyes taking on the Tulane Green Wave this coming weekend. Does Ohio State have any problems? I don't even know what the spread's like at this point.
36 points.
36 points.
5 touchdowns.
Once again, just to elaborate, you did not have Ohio State covering the spread against TCU. They didn't. I had Ohio State covering the spread against TCU. They didn't. The first two games, you had the Buckeyes covering the spread, and they did. The first two games, I didn't have the Buckeyes covering the spread, and they did.
So what you're saying is I'm a better person than you.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, dude. So what happens this weekend? They get Urban back the full week on the sidelines. Does Ohio State just absolutely smash Tulane, or maybe does it get a little weirder and a little closer than people think?
You know, I don't think this is going to be a close game by any stretch of the imagination. Tulane is not a good program. They're 1-2. I mean, they lost in overtime to Wake Forest. They lost to SMU, close game, 41-38, but they also lost to UAB. So these are not like earth-shaking programs that beat them. And their victories were over, I don't even know what this program is. Niche, N-I-C-H. Is that Nickel? Who the heck is NICH? They beat
Nicholls State.
Nicholls State.
NICHOLLS.
Yes.
State.
They rock them. So that's, I guess, the Little Sisters of the Poor. And they beat Houston by 3 points. But, this is a team that, so they're I guess they're not 1-2. They're 2-2. But, yeah, I think 36 points sounds probably about right. I'm actually going to pick them to beat that by even a little bit more. I'll be frank, I've not really done any research of Tulane other than to look at what their schedule is and what scores they had. So I don't have an intense breakdown for you, but it seems to me like, Ohio State scored 40 versus TCU. Surely they can do better than that versus Tulane. So I'm going to give them 55. Tulane only scored 17 points going against Wake Forest, and that was with an overtime period. Surely OSU could do better than Wake Forest. So I'm going to, put them at 13 instead, a little bit less than that. So I've got OSU winning 55-13. That's how I do it, which has them clearing the spread. Well, let's see. That's what, 42 points. So clearing the spread by a touchdown, by 6 points.
Well, I can tell you this much, Mr. Stefanick, Intergalactic Buckeye Fan himself, that the Tulane Green Wave have had 2 winning football seasons since 1999. 2.
Yikes.
2 winning football seasons. So, do you say the spread is at 37?
36.
36. And what was your final score?
I've got it 55-13, OSU.
That's 42. That's beating the spread. 55-14. Okay. I'm going to say
13, I said. 55-13.
55-13. I'm sorry. I'm going to say that it is 52-3. 52-3. Ohio State beats Tulane this weekend in Ohio Stadium, live and in color at 3:30 p.m. on ABC TV. And this is going to be a fucking Donnie knocker, dude. Dude, it's going to be just nuts before Ohio State takes on Penn State in Happy Valley next week, and I can't wait for us to break down that game. But otherwise, before we get off the microphone, sir, anything we forgot to talk about in this hour or so?
Well, one thing we didn't mention, and I'll just be brief about this because it's time to go, and that is the state of one Nicholas Bosa's groin, or abdomen, as the case may be. I'm hearing a sports hernia. That's what I'm hearing. And sports hernias, they typically take 4 to 8 weeks to recover from, which means no Nicholas Bosa for the Penn State game, which that really, really sucks.
No Nicholas Bosa perhaps for the remainder of the year.
He might just sit out the whole year. It's possible, but it sounds like he'll be back for Michigan, the postseason, unless he just decides to like take it off for the NFL and be like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I still kind of hurts, coach. I guess I just can't go in, and pulls a Denzel Ward.
Teddy Ginn.
Yeah.
Teddy Ginn after he returns a touchdown. Opening game kickoff against Florida, and then
he was legitimately hurt, but there's
not like that to sit out the rest of the game. Bullshit. Bullshit. I'm sorry, Chris. Bullshit. Yeah, that was a bullshit call, but I know what you're talking about.
I thought he broke his ankle on that.
No.
What does Ted Ginn need an ankle for? I mean, my God, that's only his game's only based on speed. What?
No,
he's got another one.
There were several reports that he tweaked his ankle, tweaked it, but his dad was like, "No, you're sitting out for the rest of the game." Teddy Ginn Sr. I got a boy who knows Teddy Ginn Sr. because he coaches high school lacrosse, country, the whole nine. Yeah, but we'll get into names. Anyways.
So, yep. Anyways, 4 to 8 weeks. And, if he decides to not risk it to get healthy, just take the rest of the year to get ready for the draft, maybe he's done, which is really sad because he's clearly the best player on Ohio State and, quite possibly the best player in all of college football this year. And we got him for basically 6 quarters, because he played 2 quarters a game his first 3 games. So
yep. Wouldn't that be a shitter? Yep. I mean, wouldn't that be a shitter? Nick Bosa. I mean, dude, people are saying he's better than his brother. And that was before he even came into Ohio State. And high school pundits were saying, Nick Bosa, yeah, better than his brother Joey. And his brother Joey, 3rd ranked pick in the NFL draft after 2015, and he's doing pretty good. In the NFL right now.
Right, yeah. So, and, I will say this. The 6 quarters that Bosa has played this year look better than any 6 quarters I remember his brother playing for Ohio State. I'll just put it that way. I mean, he's just been unbelievably dominant.
It up. I know.
And that guy that he was playing, I know Rutgers is not a good team, but the offensive tackle for Rutgers, that left tackle that he was going against is supposedly, by all accounts, is going to be a high draft pick. That was an NFL offensive lineman, and he just stole his lunch. So,
dude, before Nicky went out of the first half of the TCU game, he's the one who caused the fumble recovery for 6 for Ohio State's first of 2 defensive touchdowns. So, I mean, Nicky Bosa, he's an animal. He's an animal.
Right. All right. So
there we go.
That's it.
Sir, who else can you think of that we haven't talked about in this podcast that the people out there need to recognize and listen to on a regular basis? Regular basis, sir.
I'm thinking maybe me. I have a personal development podcast, Choice Conversations. Find me anywhere that you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, etc., Choice Conversations, or go to choiceconversations.com or at Choice Convo on Twitter and the like. So I'd love to have you as a listener. If you would like some more Chris Stefanick in your life, come check it out, Choice Conversations.
Folks, if you are not listening to Chris Stefanick and all of the wisdom that he espouses on a daily basis, then you know what? Just bury your head in the sand like an ostrich and don't bother listening to anything on the internet, because if you're not listening to Mr. Chris Stefanick and ChoiceConversations.com, then you need to go home. and hang up your internet hat.
Hang up your internet hat.
This edition of the Buckeye Leaf Cast, of course, brought to you, ladies and gentlemen, by the fine folks at Christie's Cleaning Services.com. It's not clean until it's Christie clean. Be sure to visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services LLC. It's also brought to you by Columbus Wired, for your premier source for sports in and around the Columbus, Ohio area and beyond. Be sure to check us out at columbuswired.net. So there you go, Mr. Stefanick. You've got him 55-13.
See.
Yeah, and I can't remember what I said, but
no, you had him 52-3, I believe.
52-3. You're right. 55-13 you, 52-3 me. Let's leave them like we always do, sir. OH.
I-O.
Go Bucks!
I want to go back to Ohio State, to old Columbus town, to the stadium to hear the band, by far the finest in the land. I want to go back to Ohio State, to old